The Seattle Sounders' brand new 2025 kit is here. Inspired by two traditional Southern Coast Salish weaving techniques, twilling and twinning. These techniques, passed down through generations, honor the resilience, deep-rooted ties, and creativity that define the cultural fabric of this region. The striking deep blue jersey will be worn by the Sounders for the next 2 seasons to honor the club's deep connection with the Puget Sound and shared responsibility as stewards of the greater Salish Sea watershed. Backing up that commitment, the Seattle Sounders will donate up to $50,000 to benefit community charities around the Puget Sound region. To get your very own Salish Sea kit, visit lobbingscorchers.com/kit. That's lobbingscorchers.com/KIT.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into our second episode of Lobbing Scorchers Kickoff. I'm Ari Liljenwall. Niko Moreno should be joining me shortly. He's got the link, so he'll be here. He'll be here in just a couple minutes. Thank you all for tuning in. We are going to be spending the majority of the show today, I think, previewing a match. The Seattle Sounders. It's match week. The Seattle Sounders are playing a soccer game against another opponent in Concacaf Champions Cup. And we're going to be looking at that opponent, Antigua GFC of Guatemala. I got their roster pulled up. Niko, he said he's done his homework. He said he's scouted them up for you guys. So he's going to lay down the scouting report. And then if we got time after that, I had one other exercise that I was thinking that we could do regarding U22 players, but I want to spend the most of us on this game because this is exciting. There's a game. It feels good. I was done with the off season, done with it. I'm excited to be able to talk about actual games instead of doing stupid stuff like ranking everybody by ambition or whatever I've been doing. It's going to be good. But before we get into it, while we kick around, wait for Niko to sign on here, I do have a few things to shill. First of all, thank you to everyone who tuned in to our Josh Atencio trade stream. That was super popping. It was a lot of fun. There was a ton of people watching, which was great to see. But we had the whole gang there. We had Jeremiah there. We had Niko there. We had Tim Foss there. So it was it was a celebrity cast of characters talking Josh Atencio. And it was our biggest stream ever. So we appreciate you guys. We also, we've just been setting records the last few days. We set our downloads record. We set our video pod views record. And we set our live streaming record all in like a 2 to 3 day span. So that wouldn't be possible without all you guys tuning in, consuming the content. And I'm glad you're seemingly enjoying the show. I feel like we wouldn't have had that many people in our stream if people weren't enjoying the show. So thank you guys for the support. Much appreciated. Yeah. We love you guys. Also, support all of our sponsors. Haxon Ferments, Podium Menswear, and Full Pull Wines. Noah and I have been working on a little project with Haxon Ferments behind the scenes that we'll be able to share the details probably in a few weeks here. I think you guys are gonna like that. It's exciting, but any support that you throw to our sponsors, that is a huge help. And anything else to show? If go ahead and like the video, that really helps. We got like 100 and something likes on the stream video, so that was great to see. Subscribe on all platforms. Like on Spotify. I don't. Write reviews. Do all that stuff. Haxon said they have seen a boost in sales. So you are all helping support a small business. Exactly. All right. Well, while we wait for Niko here, it looks like we got some questions in chat. So I'll just start going through those and then we can jump into the scouting report Niko or no Niko, but I was just texting him, so he's gonna be here. He's gonna be here, guys. Yeah, see, there he is right there. There he is right there. Niko Moreno, what's going on, man? Welcome in. How are you doing?
Hey, what's going on, Ari? Hey, what's going on, Lobbing Scorchers family? Everybody who's on, of course. My guy Noah right there. I see you, Noah. All right, man. We're just getting started right here on a Monday. A little bit of a holiday, so we
back on our Monday routine. That's right. It's presents. I literally didn't even know that, but thank you to everyone for tuning in on a holiday morning and spending some time with us. We got a new YouTube member, Bad Sequels. Much appreciated. That is great example set by Bad Sequels there. That is like one of the number one best ways you can support the show is become a YouTube member. Bad Sequels. We appreciate that greatly. Niko, we got a game to talk about. It's match week.
We do.
That's exciting. I was just saying, I'm really looking forward to not having to just think of random content that's not related to the actual season, the actual games, or in this case, Concacaf Champions Cup. But yeah, I wanted to spend the majority of this Lobbing Scorchers kickoff today talking this game against Antigua. You've done some research, you've scouted them up, so we're gonna talk about that. Talk about how Seattle matches up. So let's yeah.
Which wasn't easy, by the way. I mean, this Antigua team is not like your, Cruz Azul or Chivas or, any team that you could just kind of pop up on YouTube and, pop up on Google. I mean, it definitely, I'm glad that I had a little bit of help from a friend down there that follows the team in some capacity. So if you're looking at some YouTube highlights or YouTube games, it is rare and it's not as consistent. You might find 2-3 games, but if you look at like the schedule, there's a couple of weeks that you can't find on YouTube at all. I mean, it was a little bit difficult to get a lot of that homework, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, which like CCC, that's the situation you find yourselves in sometimes. Before we get into that, Joe in chat asked, do we have any more insights into the Atencio trade? So why don't we just get that out of the way off rip? I mean, Niko, now that there's been a couple days or day or two to digest the trade, you have any different thoughts or analysis on it than we talked about, or just how are you feeling about the trade with some time removed from it?
Not so far, and I apologize that I haven't been putting as much on it. It was a really tough pill to swallow to not get that before Tom, but I'm working myself through it. I'm trying to get myself strong enough to just talk about it and just move along. But no, so far it's all been the same. I mean, we talked about it during the emergency pod. It was literally something that I think was put together on the side of the club. There were some speculations by everyone that maybe it was Josh that prompted a trade or wanted to move. I still don't know if that's the case. Everything that I've been able to find out is that it just seemed like a possibility. It seemed like there was some interest from a lot of teams, and considering that the player was going to have some limited time here, and you get some offers that are irresistible and that you cannot say no to. I think that's what kind of pushes this whole thing over the line, is that Josh Atencio is a quality midfielder that you were hoping to switch to a center back. There were some difficulties in that process. There was going to be a learning curve. And this Sounder team, to me, looks like a win now sort of squad. And because of that, you got to maximize everything. So getting that 1.6 is what the club reported. So maybe that's something that we can talk about.
1.3 spread, 1.3 spread across the next 2 years with, I believe, in performance incentives that could bump it up 300K to 1.6.
Exactly. So maybe that's, I don't know if we talked about that during the emergency part after I ended up leaving, but 1.3 is what we kind of had assessed. But all in all, man, again, this just goes into how much Colorado probably thinks of Atencio and how much they're willing to invest in a player of his caliber and his youth, and someone that maybe they could use as a building block to the rest of the roster. So, if anything, we've been able to add on how important and how much caliber Josh really has if they're willing to put that much resources into bringing him to Colorado.
Exactly. It's a bigger number than I would have predicted they could get for him on the transfer market or the trade market or what have you. Like we were talking about it, but like anything over $1 million, it's not shocking. It's just he really hasn't had that much of a run for me to expect a number like that. He has 111 appearances, but it feels like it's mostly been in rotational spot duty. He hasn't really consistently been a week in, week out starter. So I think it's
what I will say is that he took the locker room by surprise. I mean, I've talked to a ton of guys, some that even reached out to me before anything, after the news was already out. But they were like, man, is this for real? Is this what's really happening? And it really took everyone by surprise. They didn't see that coming. It sounded like they were told as well later on that that's what was going on. And they said their goodbyes to Josh. Obviously, some are happy for him, or most are happy for him, of course. But it's still kind of a, man, that's our bro going. So definitely something that took this squad by surprise.
That's interesting to hear, because you would think any move based on the player wanting more playing time or a bigger role or stuff like that, it seems like that would be a known thing. So
yeah,
I mean, would you say is it just surprise, or are they like tilted about it? What's the vibe?
No, I just think it was surprising. I just think they didn't see him as being a guy that was not gonna be part of this squad, and he was going to be a contributing factor. He was a guy that was getting a lot of feedback and help from various center backs, and the midfielding group was also very encouraging on him, just making the moves. And because this is such a tight-knit squad, I feel like they were already all getting ready to go to battle together. And then when everything kind of came about, the initial shock was, is this really happening? And is it something that had anything to do with the team or him? And, everybody's trying to figure out what was it that prompted it. So that just talks about, I think, how close this group is, and how I think they were hoping to just all kind of go about together and face Antigua, start the season debut. And then this kind of comes about. And again, people were happy for him, essentially, because I think they knew that there was going to be some limitations for him at the position, whether it was at center midfield or whether it was at center back. It does open up, obviously, the door to a lot more playtime for Danny, for JP. And, I'm sure that as the time goes along, it's not like they're going to be happy about it, but it is something that is like, okay, now I got to step up even more, because, that's one less guy that could potentially help us out.
Let's take one more question from chat here, and then we'll get into this game preview. From Bad Sequels, our newest YouTube member. Thanks again, Bad Sequels. Something I find kind of interesting, the more I think about it, is that Colorado is rating Atencio higher than Leyva, but the Sounders are Leyva higher than Atencio. Niko, any thoughts there?
Could you read that again?
Colorado is rating Atencio higher than Leyva, because they had Danny Leyva on loan last year, and then he got sent back to the Sounders. So the implication is that they rate Atencio higher than Danny Leyva, but the Sounders seemed more willing to move Atencio ostensibly than Danny Leyva. So I guess, do you think that's an accurate assessment, that part of what was in play was Colorado rating Atencio higher than Seattle does, and Seattle maybe rating Danny Leyva higher?
No, I don't think so. I think this is more along the lines of Colorado at this time maybe rating Atencio higher than Leyva, because they're actually going and getting the player, right? They're putting a lot of resources into it. Danny, I think, was loaned out to Colorado. Obviously, that was a whole different coaching staff, with the exception of Chris Little, who I think is the connecting factor. Chris Little obviously coached here, coached Tacoma Defiance, knows the players, and he might be a guy that has brought people back. But if I'm not mistaken, Danny was there a couple of years ago, and it was Frazier who was running the show then, and not Chris Armas. So I think that's the only difference there. But I think this is just Colorado seeing an opportunity to get a guy that they believe can be a cornerstone for that team, that fits. Chris Little, again, being the guy that knows both players. And I think it's a little bit of the opposite. I think it's Colorado rating Atencio higher than maybe Danny at that time. Again, two different coaching tests for the main part, with the exception of Chris Little. So I think Danny's having a really good preseason, and everything that I've heard from him,
he always is, though. He always is.
He always is, right? I mean, he balls preseason. He always does.
He is a preseason god.
I do feel like physically he looks better, right? His vertical move, his horizontal movements, his verticality. I feel like this specific formation fits his best attributes best. And I've seen him a lot more comfortable on the ball. When it comes to his instinctual play, it feels like he gets to the spaces that he needs to get to a lot quicker. It seems like he gets the ball out of his feet a lot quicker. It seems like he can push the ball wider, just smoother. Everything about what I've seen from Danny just is a little bit better. And it has to be a combination of him working on his game, and two, the formation that Seattle's putting together, those concepts that are being worked on, the triangles that they're kind of fixing within their own functioning. Everything just seems to be working to Leiva's attributes. So I think he's going to have a good season. I do believe that the team rates him high. And if anything is going to tell you that the team might have, at this particular time, thought that Danny Leiva could do maybe a little bit more of the distributing and getting on the ball, is the fact that Atencio was being worked out to be a center back, right? I mean, you got to try to use Atencio a lot more. So instead of putting him above Leiva, you're putting him at center back. Now, it could also have to do with his frame and what he could potentially do for you at center back. He was looked at as a center back initially when he came into the team. So I think that they were hoping to bring him back to that area of the field. But I do not think that the trade has anything to do with Colorado thinking higher of Atencio over Danny Leiva.
All right, let's get into this Antigua preview. This is exciting. This is exciting. Our first time scouting up an opponent this season. We're gonna do stuff like this for every opponent Seattle has, but it's always like Niko was talking about, scouting up a team like this is a lot more difficult than it is another MLS team or Liga MX teams. There's like not a lot of film out there. Like you were saying, there's kind of questionable records of the games and the stats and all that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up their roster. I have their current squad and their transfer market page, so you can see like what every player is worth. And then we're just going to go through and you can tell the audience what you've garnered from their play style, their key players, and then we can go from there. But I am going to first pull up their current squad. There it is right there. Shout out Wikipedia. So first thing that I noticed looking at this is that most of the squad is not on Wikipedia. If you look at Seattle's roster, they're all on Wikipedia for whatever that's worth, except for maybe like Stu Hawkins or something. But other than that, everyone's on Wikipedia. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of their whole roster. So I know that's a really important part of the scouting report, but that is legitimately the first thing that I noticed. And then I had a favorite name on here. What was my favorite name? I don't see it on here. Oh, here it is. Dieter Lang. I thought that was a cool name. Anyway, Niko, from the research that you have done, what have you learned about how these guys play stylistically? And then do they have, like, who would you say are these centerpieces or the big standout guys that it's all built around?
So the first thing to point out is that this is a team that is in the making, that is not that has not been worked through for a long time. They have just recently had a coaching change, and I feel like that's the number one thing that the person who we talked to wanted me to know, is that this team is still a work in progress. And, they are second in the league. They've only had 8 games. They won 5 out of those 8 games. But the formations, the concepts, everything's still a work in progress. So they went from Javier Lopez, Spaniard head coach, the one that actually ended up qualifying this team into this tournament, because Antigua ended up getting qualified to this tournament by getting to the semifinals of the Central American Cup. Not winning it, just making it to the semifinals. And that's how they got their entry into CCC. They ended up beating a couple of big teams, which was the big story in Guatemala. They beat Saprissa, which is a very good Central American team, and Olimpia, who founders are very familiar with Coach Troglio and a very good Honduran squad. So they beat both of those teams, and they end up getting their spot into this CCC. But there's a coaching change that was prompted by the head coach himself, and Mauricio Tapia comes back. Mauricio Tapia has a long relationship with Antigua. He's actually the coach that gave this team 3 titles back in 15, 16, and 17. So he's beloved, and people have all sorts of trust in Mauricio Tapia's ability to bring this team back to glory and continue to build from what now is an opportunity to be at an international tournament. So that's that. Because it's so early on for Tapia, I literally did the research of some of his press conferences, and although the team is second, he's highly critical of himself, highly critical of the team. They just won 6-0 in their last game against the top bottom team of the league. And even in the 6-0 win, he's like, yeah, man, we lost possession in the second part of that game, and I thought that we could have been a lot more less vulnerable and a more effective with the ball. So you could tell that he's been trying to work this concepts and formations into the squad that just hasn't really cemented itself. They asked him about the Sounders because there was some rotation within his squad, and he says he's been rotating for a couple of weeks now, making sure that he does have a healthy squad for the Sounders game here coming up. So that was interesting to me. They play either out of a 5-4-1 or a 4-1-4-1. So definitely a team that is trying to beat you out of the counter. They try to keep lines real tight, but they have been unable to do it. I mean, they've scored a lot of goals for that tournament, but they've also given up a lot of goals. One of Tapia's own criticism about his team was that his wingbacks, because he does play with wingbacks whenever he does that 5-man back line, they get too high and they're vulnerable and they consistently don't come back enough. So in my mind, I'm thinking that's where Shadow's going to be able to attack. That's where Shadow's going to be able to get behind those wingbacks and expose the flanks. And it kind of goes to what we've seen out of the preseason. So I was excited to hear that. We have the Roll Down brothers. They have the Santis brothers, Diego and Oscar. Oscar's a winger, is by far the best player on the team. He is just coming from the Georgian League, which, that was interesting for me. This is his first year back, 25-year-old winger from Dynamo Tbilisi from the Georgian League. he's their best player. He's the leading scorer with 4 goals. He's the guy that gives them all the width, the creativity. He comes inside, outside, regardless of the formation. He's the guy that really gets this team going offensively. His brother is a wing back, but could also play on that 3-man back line whenever they do 5 in the back. So he could play center back on the left side. And yeah, man, that's kind of the biggest notes that I have here when it comes to this squad. What I'm seeing from this team is that they are gonna take Seattle, and they're not gonna be the protagonist. They're not gonna try to attack him completely. They are gonna, as everyone expects, absorb some pressure, try to beat them off the counter, be very physical. Every single game that I've watched over the last couple of days, a couple of red cards, couple of brawls in the middle of the field. I mean, in their own,
it's going to be like that.
Very Concacaf type of soccer, man. Even when they're up ahead, I think there was a red card like in the 70th minute. I mean, it's been one of those situations where I was like, this is a physical team, no matter how you play them. So that's kind of the biggest things that I've seen so far.
That's great stuff. Thanks for doing all that research. Yeah, I mean, couple things that caught my ear there. Number one, sounds like, so we talk about these teams in MLS, like the Galaxy and Inter Miami, and to a lesser, there's a couple other clubs to a lesser extent, but who tactically are very, very aggressive on the attacking end, but sometimes at the expense of their defense and really their control over games, and they concede a lot of goals. It sounds like what you're saying is that in league play, that is sort of similar to how these guys play, but in terms of how you expect them to approach this series, you're expecting them to be a little more deferential, absorb more pressure, try and hit Seattle on the counter, with the knowledge that they're the underdog in this situation. Would you say that's how you expect them to play in the first leg? Even though if it was me coaching this team, which it's not, but if it was me coaching this team, I would say, listen, this team has a lot more firepower than us. There's a lot more money into their roster. We've shown that we're a pretty good attacking team in league play. We just scored 6 goals in the first half of this first leg. Let's just try and get on them. Like, forget the absorbing pressure and playing cautiously. I would try and just see if you can catch Seattle out and take advantage of your fitness advantage, and try and get a goal or two on them in the first half, and see if you can just sort of change the complexion of this series. Do you think they're going to do that at all, or is it going to be more measured than that?
No, I think it's going to be more measured because every press conference that I heard from Tapia, it sounds like all he's trying to do is say, man, I don't want this to be the regular. I don't want to be putting up 3 and conceding 2. That's not the way I score. Oh, he actually says that in one of the press conferences. I have it right here on a quote. He says, I'm not used to conceding this many goals in percentage or in rate. We have to get better at that. It just seems like he's a guy that when he faces Seattle, his entire mindset is going to be not conceding. He's going to be in making sure that he's not getting his wing backs too far out. He's going to be in just giving himself a chance to play. So the person who was talked to here in Guatemala as well said that the tickets were a little bit higher in price than usual, and they had some concerns about how much that stadium was going to get filled, and therefore they want to make sure that they give these people not just a show but a result, and that's putting a lot of pressure along the lines of that team in general. And so I thought that was interesting because I do think that whenever this Central American teams play MLS teams or Mexican teams, it's kind of like a win-win, no matter what, right? We're just out here just to play, right? Nobody's expecting us to win, and we're just going to go out here. There is a little bit of internal pressure from this specific Guatemalan team, so I thought that was interesting because he might also change the approach from Tapia going into the Sounder squad. But yeah, that's kind of what I'd say about that.
And as far as all the CONCACAF stuff you were mentioning, I mean, get ready for that, guys. Get ready for it. That is happening. I guarantee you it's not lost on them the extent to which they're the underdog. And when you're in that situation against a CONCACAF team, they're going to pull out all the stops. They're going to do some crazy stuff. There's going to, I would almost guarantee that there's going to be a couple of tackles where it's a not clean tackle and the ref's not going to give him a card. The game's just going to keep going. You're going to be watching on TV, pulling your hair out, wondering how a red card challenge didn't even get a yellow. Like, that is just how these games go. Before we talk about our just expectations, predictions, what have you for this game, I am going to pull up their transfer market page, and you can look at this and see exactly what their market value is projected at. So I thought that was kind of interesting to look at. Well, because it really it sort of underscores the difference in the two teams. Just going through their roster right here, you see a lot of guys market value. I mean, the highest that they have a center back who's valued at $300K. That's looking like the highest that I'm seeing right now. There's they got a center forward, Apolaza, $350K.
Oh.
Who are you saying was the best player?
Oscar Santis.
Oscar Santis. So only valued at $100K, but you were saying he's clear as day best player on the team. What did you see from him on film?
So definitely shifty, can very easily try to beat you off the dribble, not because of his pace, but because of his explosiveness and kind of change of rhythm. By far the best services into the box came from him. Not afraid to hit that early cross. He doesn't have to go to the end line. He'll hit that early cross consistently, because actually the guy who you just mentioned, Apaloasa, he's the guy that's got that frame. He's the guy that's kind of being that holding center mid, doing the dirty work, but he gets up pretty well. They seem to have a lot of trust in his ability to put the ball in the back of the net. So it's cross after cross after cross when it comes to this team. Romario Luis da Silva, he's kind of like the super sub situation. He's a Brazilian, 35-year-old, that the coaching staff trusts that if they need to get a goal, either they add him as a second forward or they're going to flip him with Apoloasa. The guy who I talked to said that he's one of the fan faves because of his ability to just kind of make things happen on the field. When it comes to the defense, I don't know if that's the guy that you were talking about that's worth $300,000, but Kevin Grijalba, he's the guy that seemed to be one of the most aggressive center backs that they had, one that consistently gets this team in the right direction. He can get into trouble a lot when it comes to those yellows and red that I was talking about. Very physical center back, depending on the formation. Jose Rosales is another guy that seems to be one of those cornerstones of this team that manages the reins, distributes, kind of holds it down. And yeah, those are some of the biggest names that I kind of put together on my homework page here. Chema Hernandez as well, another very shifty player that in their idea is the biggest associate in the midfield for Santis. So those two guys are going to consistently try to push together. They are the creative ones, if you will, of this squad. And yeah, that was another thing that was put out on my notes.
When I was going through their roster, the only name that I recognized was this guy, Alexander Robinson. I thought that I recognized him from MLS. Turns out he's never played in MLS, but he played for Saprissa for a lot of years. He's Costa Rican, and he's been a character in CONCACAF for a long time. But other than that, I'd never heard anybody, which could make them more dangerous. You can see here, You can see their average age is 25.8, so they're a pretty young squad, and $4.23 million roster. So what is Seattle's, like 20 plus or at this point?
I think so, at the very least.
So yeah, I mean, so you've got a disparity there, but in these games that sometimes means less than you would think, given all the variables that are at play. There's a bunch of questions in chat that we can get to, and I think that segues us kind of into how we expect Seattle to line it up and our expectations for this game. So let's start with this one up here from gbent14. What kind of lineup do you expect to see? So I think the question there is they have this game against Charlotte at home on the weekend, right after this game, after a huge road trip back from Guatemala. So for me, I expect this game to be the first choice 11, and then the Charlotte one rotated a little bit, potentially extensively. And I'll be clear, that is how they should be doing it. Right now, CCC getting off to a good start in that tournament is absolute number one priority. You got to throw everything at that, even against a team that you think that you are heavily favored against. You can't mess around at all with this. So I expect it, to answer the question, I expect it to be the first choice 11 that we've talked about throughout preseason for this game. And then whatever rotation you might see will be for the Charlotte one. Niko, do you see that differently at all?
No, I see it the same, with maybe the thought that Brian's going to be very careful when it comes to the health of the squad. So in my opinion, he's going to put his best 11. I think it's going to be the exact same squad that faced Louisville in the preseason game just a week ago. But he's going to be mindful. Guatemala, that field, I don't know if you guys remember, but I'm going to knock on wood here, but Jordan Morris, last time he was in Guatemala is when he had that big injury.
That was El Salvador, wasn't it?
Huh?
Wasn't that El Salvador?
Was it El Salvador? Oh, maybe it was El Salvador. He was El Salvador. He was El Salvador. But, you know,
that's
Central America in general.
That's a game I was going to bring up, though. They were... It was the same situation where they were heavily favored against that team from El Salvador. And if you guys remember, that was obviously a total disaster of a game. Like you mentioned, Jordan, that was the big Jordan injury. But the El Salvador team, if I remember correctly, actually won that first leg. I think it was 2-1. Ladero had an insane goal from like midfield. So Seattle got a road goal, but they put a couple past Seattle in that game. And I remember Will Bruin saying that after that game in El Salvador, that team was feeling good. They were blasting their music in their locker room. They thought they had it. They thought they had it. And then they came back to Seattle, and Seattle blew the doors off them. It was like 4 or 5-0. But the first road leg of a series like this, even against a team like this, I don't think, especially with the fitness disparity that we're talking about here, for me, expecting a blowout win or a super one-sided win where Seattle looks amazing, it just, having watched this tournament for a lot of years, that just doesn't usually happen. Maybe it'll happen, but what usually happens is Seattle or any MLS team goes into a game like this, their fan base feels like they should blow the doors off them because of how much of a financial disparity there is with the roster build. But then the reality of the long road trip, the unforgiving climates, the poor field conditions, the general CONCACAF-ness of everything, it's going to make it a closer game than you want. And for that reason, the next topic I was going to bring up was our expectations for this game and what would be a good result. For me, in these circumstances, if you 0-0 or 1-1 this, that is a pretty good result, honestly. And then you can take it home and then hope to jump all over them in the home leg. It's just expecting to be all over them in this game like this, with them already having 8 league games under their belt and then all the other variables that I mentioned. If they 0-0 this or 1-1 it, I think it would feel disappointing because of how good the offense has looked in preseason and what we expect of this team. But me personally, I would feel pretty good about their chances if they're able to just draw this. How do you feel about this? Are you pounding the table for them to win this, or do you feel like a draw would be a good result?
I always feel like a draw is a good result in any international tournament that has two legs. However, I do expect Seattle to win. As after talking and doing my research on this team, it's clear that they are even more of a project than most of the teams that we'll face in this tournament. Usually, Olympia, was a team that was put together for a very long time, very well coached, tight-knit team. This seems to be a squad that's still trying to find itself, information in fitness, in concepts, in everything. I feel like their struggles walk right into what Seattle wants to do with the ball. So I feel like, although maybe they'll have to work harder to break this team down, because like I said, I don't think they're going to play as freely as they do in league play. And I think that 5-man backline will be a 5-man backline. It's not going to be 3 in the back. Maybe they'll be selective about when to push those wing backs, but I feel like they're going to drop them really, really tight, and they're not going to give Seattle a lot of space. But I do expect them to win because of what I'm saying. I feel like this Central American teams, a lot of times, they come out on top because those groups have been together for such a long time. The coaching staff has been there for such a long time. They obviously have that injection of adrenaline playing a top team in Central America or in CONCACAF. So because of that, there's always that little possibility that there could be a surprise, just like it happened to Tigres, like it happened to Pumas. But I do think that Seattle, with their starting 11, and I think that they will play in the 3-4-2-1 that they played against Louisville. I think Pedro de la Vega is ready to have a monster game. I feel like Ferreira, if anything,
this is his.
Ferreira,
This is where he cooks.
This is where he shines, baby. This is where he sets up and sails and becomes the Pirate of the Caribbean or whatever they called them. I mean, I do think that Ferreira is ready to just put it all out there. I recently was talking to somebody about, the move from Ferreira, man, and I feel like he has every motivation to just kill it right off the bat, right? Everybody talking about Lucho Acosta going to Dallas. Everybody, is asking why he decided to stay in MLS instead of Europe. There's all this criticism. I feel like that boy's got a chip on his shoulder the size of Rhode Island, and he's just going to kill it out there.
Yeah, and that's one upshot of the Ferreira signing that we've kind of been joking about, but like the Pirate of the Caribbean thing is kind of a real thing. Like, conditions, fields like this, environments like this, they do not phase him. They never have in his career. And I'm pretty curious to see, because FC Dallas, I feel like they really weren't in CCC all that frequently when he was on the team. I don't know. I don't really have many memories of him playing in this. I'm sure that they've been in it, but I don't think they've ever made it far enough to really have him leave a big imprint on it. I think that he is one of the keys to this whole tournament for Seattle, because he eats in games like this. He does. Like, it's not a bit. That's a real thing. Niko, Albert Rusnak probably not playing in this game. Like, I've already written that off. How do you see them contending with that absence? Who's going to line up in that spot centrally, and what effect do you think that absence could have on these proceedings?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was distracted because it looks like they're pushing the practice up to 9:00. So I'm definitely not going to be able to make it there by the time they leave, but I don't expect anything different. I do believe Albert Rusnak, there's no reason. There's actually no way that they're going to risk him in Guatemala.
0% chance, folks.
0%. Nothing. He hasn't had practices. You need certain practices in. He's been nothing but he hasn't even been limited in practice since I've been there or I've heard from. He's just been doing a little bit of jogging, some cardiovascular work, things of that nature, some resistance stuff, but nothing when it comes to being part of the team group drills. So yes, I don't expect him to play. Again, I don't think it's I don't even think it's a question mark. It's clear as day that it's going to be Ferreira and Pedro de la Vega who will take those two cam positions, if you will, in this formation for the
Dual
Sounders.
10? Is that what you're saying?
Yep,
Okay.
they'll do the dual tens. Yep, with the 3-4-2-1. That's kind of what we saw against Louisville. Pedro and Ferreira were both being creative midfielders, both attacking midfielders, both shifting, both dropping. Ferreira a little bit deeper, it seemed. Pedro La Vega a little bit more ready to be explosive up top. But I don't think this team, and this is something to say about the depth of the squad. I don't think this team is worried, and not a knock on Albert at all. I'm just saying that the team's not concerned right now to just let him rest and let him get better, because you have a guy like Ferreira that he's your big name. He's supposed to be the one carrying the load. And then you got a guy like Pedro, the young DP on his second year, finally healthy, finally in form, has looked the best out of any player this preseason. So it's literally a perfect match right now to just start this team the way they are, while they let Albert Rusnak just rest.
Here's my question about this Rusnak thing, though. Schmetz has a track record of when a guy has a muscle injury or like a thing like this, he'll be like, oh, it's fine. He's just going to miss this next game, and then we'll get him back for this game, blah, blah, blah. And then it turns out that it's like a month-long production. Like, from your read on it so far, is this honestly a situation where they're just like, it's not worth the risk to run Rusnak out there in this first game, but we'll probably have him back by Charlotte? Or do you get any sort of inkling that this is a thing where he could be in for an extended absence?
But that's a tough question, because Brian has, in the last year or year and a half, been more coy about this sort of situation and have gone away from he's a tough kid to giving us a little bit more of a poker face and not necessarily being as clear with everything. I have a intuition that he's probably going to be out even beyond the Charlotte game. That's
my intuition too, man. That is, yeah. I don't want to put that on him, but just based on having, I've been in a lot of Schmetz pressers. I watch all the Schmetz pressers. That's just the vibe I get. Which, we'll see what happens. Like, I'm not predicting that. We're just, it's pure speculation. But I do think, regardless of what happens with that, in this game specifically, this is an opportunity for Ferreira, like we mentioned, but also I think this is a big chance for De La Vega to show that the insane preseason he just had was not practice God stuff, and that's how he's going to play this year. I think this is a chance for him to put the hype train through the roof. If he goes out there, balls out, has even one goal contribution, and basically I think more it's just looks like he's been looking through preseason, which is the best player I've ever seen on planet Earth. I think the hype train could explode. I mean, what do you think about his prospects in this game, and what do you think the implications would be for him kind of replicating what he's been doing in preseason?
I am very anxious and excited to see him play. I think that this is built for what he does. I mean, from what I've seen, likely a midfield that will not keep up with him on speed or explosiveness. I feel like he's going to turn and he's going to be able to break through 3-4 players. And I feel like he's designed to really be a guy that's going to make this small block, deep block team just collapse on him, and he makes all of this influence and difference. But he does make me nervous, because usually in this sort of game, the most talented player and the player that holds the ball the most is the one that gets the most punishment.
They're going to be coming after him.
They're going to come after him. And with his health situation, he makes me nervous that whether it's ill-intended or not, a guy gets nutmegged, a guy gets put through, gets put to shame, and all of a sudden he's coming in with cleats high or, CONCACAF stuff.
I don't think it's even that. I think in this situation, they're definitely saying number 10 is going to be on the ball a lot. He's looked insane in preseason. He's one of their most expensive players. Send that guy a message. Put him on his ass. Like if he's dribbling around everybody, don't let him do that. I would be shocked if their coach isn't drilling all that into them. And I think you're right. That does make it scary.
Yeah, it makes it scary. But again, I do think that what he provided in the preseason is not a fluke. It's not something that's just a preseason. I don't think he's a preseason MVP from here on out and not in the regular season. I really do think that he is in fantastic shape. I think that he has something to prove. Jeremiah said it, and I'll say it again in case anybody didn't hear him. When the Louisville game, the final whistle was set and game was over, Pedro had 2 goals, had been electric, Rabona, bicycle kick that got saved, everything. And when the whistle went out, he was upset. He's like, man, let me stay on the field. He's hungry. He's determined. He wants to be out there. I feel like he's going to put that out completely in his Antigua game. This is his game. This is where he's going to make his name. And I think he knows that and believes that. So I'm hoping that he doesn't get hurt. That's all I'm going to put out there into the world. Do not let him.
We all agree with that. So I think we both agree that for this game, it's going to be the first choice 11. So let's talk about real quick how that is going to affect the lineup for the Charlotte game. First of all, the Charlotte lineup is going to be rotated a bit by necessity in this situation. So I already know that when the Charlotte 11 drops, there's going to be like all this outrage about you cannot play the same lineup on the weekend as you play in a Wednesday match. Pretty much ever. Like, I mean, you can play some of the same guys, but you're just never going to see a coach put like an entire 11 of guys like at risk like that. But I mean, what is your expectation for the Charlotte lineup? Like, how much is it going to be rotated? What guys, if any, do you think are going to play in both of these games? How do you sort of read that?
That's a very good question. I think that absolutely going to be some rotation. I would expect the lineup to hold up. I don't expect Pedro to play both games or start both games. I do expect Ferreira, Jordan, maybe Christian, not Obed, and maybe you get JP sometime against Charlotte. I don't think that the backline will change much. Maybe you start to figure out some options at wingback, and Ariola maybe gets pulled off. But I think that there will be some changes, no doubt for me. I do expect to see the likes of Georgie in there. He's someone that's been not just fit, but he's someone that I feel like the team has trusted a lot. So I could see him being one of those players that comes in. Maybe a guy like Georgie can start at a wingback position and just kind of surprise you a little bit, see how he does there. Maybe we'll see.
You're cooking there, Niko. What side of wingback do you want, Georgie? I guess right back, right?
Right side, yeah. Right side for sure. So maybe we see some of that. I don't think that Brian Smetzer is going to be afraid to just rotate the lineup and put some things out there just to see how they fit in that first game against Charlotte. Specifically because I do think that you're going to put all your eggs in the CCC basket to start off the year, at least the start of the year. So everything can change depending on what happens there, health-wise, minute-wise, all of those things, all those components are going to be factoring into who you put in Charlotte. But the depth of this team makes me very comfortable not caring what that rotating squad might be like. This is by far the deepest team, the team with the highest floor, the highest floor. The ceiling is not as high as it's ever been, but the floor certainly is for this Sounders team, and that's why I'm okay with some of those rotations.
Jeremiah just sent me a graphic of his projected lineup, so I'm gonna try and pull that up, but it's gonna take me a second. So I'll just dish another take and then try and get that pulled up.
Yeah,
I was
that's
thinking,
all right,
what's that?
No, my guess is just Steph, is Alex, Jackson, Yamar Jackson, Nuhu, Ariola, Christian, Obed, Pedro, Ferreira, and Morris.
All right, were you just dishing the Antigua lineup?
Yeah.
All right.
I think you're talking about Charlotte.
Well, okay. So I was thinking Ariola would be like a candidate to start for the Charlotte game, but I also really want to see him play in CCC. I feel like he's another guy that hasn't gotten to play in CONCACAF that much, who could like really thrive. Not everyone is built for it, but I feel like I think Ferreira is built. I think Ferreira and Ariola are kind of built for it, and a bunch of people in chat were saying Paul Rothrock is also built for it. I couldn't agree more with that. I think he is a classic CONCACAF player.
Absolutely. Right. Anytime that you play Mexican teams, Paul is in the middle of the brawls. He's in the middle of the physicality. Exactly. He's talking mess to Chino Huerta. I mean, he don't care. And I love that about Paul. I just don't know where he is at physically. He hasn't had the preseason that others have had. So that's where my concern might be at. But in terms of attitude and everything, hell yeah, man. Paul is built for those types of games.
All right. I'm still having technical difficulties with this graphic, which is a super big shock. But yeah, I mean, any other thoughts on Antigua that we haven't hit? I'll see if there's any questions in the chat. We got Christopher McCool. Random intrusive thought as we talk expectations against Antigua. PSG to Sounders valuation on transfer market is almost the same from Sounders to Antigua. Exactly. That's a good way of putting it. Like they're essentially in that situation. Noah, thank you. Appreciate that. All right. So this is what Jeremiah has projected for both these games. He's projecting the three. Is this the 3-5-2 on the left here? All right. He's projecting the 3 CBs.
Same 3-4-2-1.
Okay. With Paul Ariola, Alex Roldan wingbacks, Vargas Roldan double pivot, Ferreira de la Vega, Morris. So I think that is pretty much how we were talking about it with Rusnak rotating out. He's got Rusnak playing against Charlotte.
I mean, if he's healthy, of course.
That's happening. I could be wrong.
I don't think so either, man. I really don't. I just, my intuition tells me that that's not going to happen. But if he is healthy, I mean, of course you're going to run with him. But that's a big question mark for me, and that's why I think Ferreira will be at that position. I don't expect Pedro to go back to back. Unless maybe you play De La Vega 45 in Antigua, and then maybe you could start him in Charlotte again. But again, that's still to be determined. That's what is so difficult to predict, right? Because it all depends on what the game needs in this one. I mean, if Brian sees a team that is 0-0 at 45 and he really feels like they are a couple of minutes away from getting that score, he might leave that lineup a little bit longer, and that might switch it up a lot more for Charlotte. But I love the change of the pivots, though, for Charlotte. I mean, why not? Why not start Leyva and JP just to see how that plays out in this one? It does seem like that's a lot of changes that Jeremiah has in there, and Manungu on those inside channels. I don't necessarily love either, but hey, man, I think it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, I kind of like this Charlotte lineup with I've been dying to see Rothrock in this kind of hybrid wingback role and like how that plays with how they've been running it in preseason. Always down for a Georgie cameo. So I do think we're both kind of on the same page that we get the vibe that Rusnak's probably missing at least this Charlotte game as well. So that would change things, but I think just in general, this is the vibe that you're looking at for the Charlotte game. It's got Jordan.
I would argue that if Albert is fit and ready for Charlotte, I go to a 4-2-3-1, and I would use some of the same players that are on this one, with the exception of course, you go to a four-man back line and knew who's your left back. But I mean, that's kind of the interesting part, right? I mean, the concepts are so similar from both formations that you could potentially just kind of just shift it a little bit and you get the exact same formation. So I see where he's going there with Georgie. The only thing is that I feel like, and me and Jeremiah have talked about that, with the three-man back line, I feel like Alex and Paul would give you all your width, and Georgie would be a little bit more obligated to play in the inside. And I don't love him there. I love him just wider out.
Any chance that the team might try to hide their new 3-back formation and use a 4-5-1 until second round of CCC? That question's from
Not a chance. Not a chance. That's what they've been working on. That's what they feel most comfortable right now. That's what everybody's kind of getting to. So I think that they will definitely use a 3-man back line.
All right, we are past an hour here on this Lobbing Scorchers kickoff on Monday. I have until about 9:15, 9:20 on these days. Niko, feel free to cut out whenever you need, but I'm good for another 10 minutes or so. What's up with you?
Yeah, I was hoping to just hit it about an hour. Obviously, it's the holiday today, so I got the kids at the house.
I'm not doing anything for the holiday, but if you got stuff to do, by all means, I'm about to wrap up in a few minutes here anyway. So
all in all, man, I'm excited for this game. I think
game.
that super chat.
No, I was saying that I was celebrating the fact that we have a game, but that's a good shout. If you want to guarantee your comment gets seen, all you need to do.
Yeah, let's do a super chat, guys. Hit me up with a question before I have to go. I'll see what I can potentially give you guys. But in regards to this game, man, I think that Seattle's built to beat this Antigua team. I'm not as skeptical as I've been with other Central American opponents in this particular phase of the tournament. I do trust this team. I do believe in this team. I'm high on them. I think that there are very little teams in MLS that could hit the floor running the way the Sounders can. And I think that's why I'm so high on them this season. And I think it's going to show against Antigua. And aside from the physicality component and everything that has to do with CCL, I think if Seattle plays their game, they can come up top with maybe a 2-goal difference. Let's not be greedy. 1-goal difference is just as good. But I don't think it'll be a tie. I think that Seattle has enough to go down to Guatemala and get themselves a winning score to bring back to here at Lumen.
All right. Good stuff, Niko. Thank you for doing this again. I mean, we're going to be doing it every week all season, ostensibly. So much appreciated. Always a good time. Really excited to have a game to preview. That was fun to talk about an actual game that's taking place. We'll see how the notes hold up too, man. So Chema Hernandez,
Oscar Santis, Apaloasa. So we'll see how those players end up doing for Antigua. I'm excited to see because, again, obviously the Sounders have a whole different amount of resources to just look at game tape and all of these situations. But this is the fun part out of CCC and Concacaf Champions League in general. And I think you're on the same page with me there, Ari, when you get these teams and you get to learn more about a squad that maybe you did not hear of before, and now you got a little bit more information on them. It's been interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I always love when Seattle's playing a random team like this, or just a team that they normally wouldn't get to play, and you get to learn about their club and their culture and their fans and everything. And it's all just like a new experience. So yeah, looking forward to the game.
It's another one of those rave green type of teams. They call them Los Panzas Verdes, the green bellies, which a bunch of teams like Leon and everybody who has green end up having that sort of nickname to their squad. But I find it interesting that more times than not, Seattle end up playing a Panzas Verdes type of team in fan base. Very proud fan base. Apparently, the stadium gets pretty loud if they get everybody inside. So I'm also looking into what that's going to look like. So I appreciate it, man. Hope you guys have a good day. No super chats today. I see y'all. I'm going to try to bring something so you guys can do super chats. It is a holiday, so maybe that's why I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna let it go. But
we'll let it go. We'll let it slide this time.
I'm gonna let it slide
I'm
today.
gonna be on for a few minutes, so let's not goose egg.
There you go. Yeah, let's not goose egg. Give my guy a super chat, and I'm gonna try to bring something in my back pocket next Monday and see if we can get a super chat for sure.
Okay, appreciate that. See you, Niko. Niko Moreno, Sounder at Heart, Pulso Sports. Another episode of Lobbing Scorchers Kickoff, our second ever one. Thank you guys for tuning in. We still got about 70 people in here. Much appreciated. I hope you guys are enjoying these. It seems like you are. So we're gonna keep doing them even if you're not. So I'll let's see. I'm gonna start the wrap up process here. Where's the lo-fi? Hold on. Here we go. If you have any last questions, topics, thoughts on this game, thoughts on the lineup, go ahead, drop them in chat. I'll get to them before I head out of here. But we're going to wrap this up shortly here. Fern ED9 says we are winning 4-1 in Guatemala. That would be big time. If they win this first leg by multiple goals, it's not over with. But as difficult as these road trips are for MLS clubs, going to these exotic locations and playing on these low quality fields and all that, they're equally hard, if not harder, for the Central American teams coming here. You saw that in the series that I was talking about, where Seattle lost the first leg, and then the second leg, I think it was literally 5-0. 1-0 win. No, is this your prediction? Is that what that means? You're predicting the 1-0. Who gets the goal? Yeah, let's drop some predictions. What score you guys got? Noah, give me the goal score. Jesus is gonna score? I'm just kidding. I know what you meant. All right. Last call. Questions, topics, lineup projections. Send them in now. Otherwise, I'm ending the stream. You have 30 seconds. Going once, going twice. Looks like we goose egged on super chats. That's fine. All that really matters is that you guys tune in to the stream and listen to and download the podcasts. Everything on top of that is just gravy. Oh, yes. Y'all going to the fast fashion craft casual event on Friday. Yeah. Noah and I are both gonna make an appearance there. So if you're going to fast fashion on Friday and you see us, come say hi. We're sort of I'm friendly. Noah's not that friendly, but I'm friendly. Predictions. Kyle says 3-1 Sounders. Sam says 2-0. All right, you guys are all predicting the dub. You are predicting a dub pod for our first game review of the season of CCC. So it's called Manifestation. Gotta plug the new beer and merch. We got stuff in the works, guys. We got stuff in the works. All right. I think that is just about a good place to end it. Hour and 10 minutes. Good stuff. Thank you guys for tuning in to Lobbing Scorchers Kickoff. These have been fun. We are going to be here every Monday at 8 a.m. throughout the MLS season. There'll probably be a few Mondays where we can't do it for whatever reason, but on a normal Monday, we're going to be right here, live show, to start off every single week. And then I'm doing Under the Lights on Thursdays at 7:30. Don't miss that. And then also, so with the Josh Atencio trade, I mean, we're not planning on going live, but we figured we've got some big time news here. Let's capitalize. And that was our most successful stream ever. So I think there will probably be, if I had to venture to guess, there will be situations like that throughout the year where major news drops and we have to go live right away. But other than that, I mean, this is the last show before the first game of CCC, first game of the season. So from here on out, we'll have games to talk about. We'll actually be able to evaluate player performances and results, stuff like that. That's exciting. I can't wait. It's going to be a good season. All right, I'm getting out of here. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Appreciate you. Looking forward to the game, and I'll see you all on Thursday. Peace. Don't want to give money to the oligarchs, but love Lobbing Scorchers? Do we have a deal for you? MLS Season Pass is back on Apple TV with access to every single MLS match, including Leagues Cup and the entire Audi MLS Cup playoffs with no blackouts. It's not just the games, you get total access to the pre- and post-match MLS 360 whip-around show in both English and Spanish, and get live look-ins and highlights from around the league, as well as full match replays and recaps. Now, you can support our show by visiting lobbingscorchers.com/Apple TV to purchase your subscription and support our show.
LobbingScorchers.com/Apple TV. Please, don't let the oligarchs win.